Okay, so welcome back, and now let's talk about vectors. So what is a vector? A vector is a line segment that represents two things. It represents a magnitude and a direction of a quantity. Okay, so vector is a line segment. So for example, we have this line segment. Now it starts with what we call an initial point, right? So this would be the initial point. Okay, and then a terminating point where the arrow's at. Okay. Okay, so you draw a vector by drawing an arrow from a beginning point, an initial point, to a terminating point, where the arrow points to the terminating point. So the magnitude is the size of their arrow, which means it's the length, right? So that's the magnitude. Now the magnitude has other connotations to it based on the context of the problem. It might represent a force, the magnitude of a force. So we have two things. We have magnitude, the size of the arrow, and the direction of the arrow, which is depicted by the arrow and the direction of the arrow. Now, how do you denote a vector? Well, there's a few different ways you could do it. You could use a bold-faced U, right, or a bold-faced letter. A lowercase bold-faced letter will depict a vector, or you could put a bold-faced lowercase letter with an arrow above it. So you can have a lowercase bold-faced letter with or without an arrow, and that would denote a vector. Or you could use the initial and terminating points of the vector and put an arrow above it, and that would also be used for denoting a vector. Another way to denote a vector is to use these triangle brackets. These brackets here also denote a vector. Now this is a special type of notation that is used to denote what we call the standard position of a vector. So standard position, or the position vector. Now this here denotes a vector that has its initial point at the origin and its terminating point at a point, let's say A comma B. So we would put the triangle brackets around A comma B, and that would automatically denote that this is a standard position where the terminating point, or excuse me, the beginning point is always at the origin, and the terminating point is whatever is in here. So A comma B. Okay? And so that is a special type of notation that is used for the standard position, or the position vector. Now, if I'm given some vector with 2 points, right? So let's say I have an initial point and a terminating point. I can write any vector as a position vector by just subtracting corresponding x values and corresponding y values. For example, if I want to take a vector that's at x1, y1, and x2, y2, and I want to write this vector as a position vector or in standard position, then what I would do is I would take the terminating vector, the point, and I would subtract the x value. So I would do A, so A would equal x2 minus x1, and B would equal y2 minus y1. And so then my vector, my position vector, would be written as follows. It would be x2 minus x1, comma, y2 minus y1. And that's the way we would depict. And so you can basically translate or transform or slide a vector anywhere in the plane and slide it to standard position by doing these corresponding subtractions. Okay? What else can I say? I think that's it. I think that's all I wanted to say here. Yep, I think so. Okay, so we'll come back, we'll do some examples, and we'll move forward. Have a great day.